What's going on, folks? Contender Series Week 3 breakdowns for you guys. Trying out a new date here on the Friday. The last one I did was on Sunday, and it still gave us pretty good work and pretty good numbers. But I'm wondering what it would look like if I'm able to be one of the first guys on the bill here to go out there and give my predictions and stuff. So I'm hoping Friday afternoons is normally where I can kind of lean on to go out and do these breakdowns. And then obviously later in the day, do my ultimate weigh-in show for the UFC weigh-ins, which actually just wrapped up right now. So if you guys want to hear my thoughts on the UFC weigh-ins, I'll be talking about that on the ultimate weigh-in show at 6 p.m. Eastern this evening. I'll be having a first-timer on the show, but he's a very sharp dude. He's currently the number one guy in the $500 lock of the night challenge. His name is Gordo Gambles. He'll be coming on the show with me at 6 p.m. to break down this card one last time. I'm trying to figure out what this. Yeah, what is that? Get that dealt with. There we go. It's out of there. This fucking string I got to cut out, but still booking me. I still love this hat. I don't care what people say. All right, let's get into this 5-fight UFC Dana White Contender Series card. Let me just pull it up real quick here for you guys. Let's talk about the last event though, right? Like what a fucking war it was for a lot of those fights, specifically the main event, right, between Charlie Campbell and Chris Duncan. That was an absolute fire fight there. We saw Charlie Campbell almost get him out of there early, but obviously Chris Duncan comes back with that crazy 1-2 combination. And then that follow-up shot on the ground was just a thing of beauty. I went 2-3 on predictions that night, hoping that we can go at least 3-2 or 4-1 this time around based on that. And I'll say this. I was a little bit hesitant in terms of taking the shot on Salvador because I was even saying during that breakdown of the Shannon Ross fight that like I felt as though Shannon Ross was the flimsiest um favorite on that card, and it seemed like a lot of people were on the Shannon Ross side that night, hoping a lot of people had listened to my breakdown and kind of kept him out of their plays. Although if they listened to me and put Charlie Campbell in their plays, they're probably ripping up their tickets as well. But I should have had the confidence to go out there and actually just play a little bit on Salvador, especially with how wide that line was, and me obviously, showcasing and realizing that he was too big of a favorite and could absolutely shit the bed there. So what I'm going to try to do is if I do feel pretty flimsy about a favorite, especially a big favorite, I will end up going with the underdog and making that my prediction. So we'll see how that goes going forward. Again, we will talk about the UFC Vegas 59 weigh-ins on the Ultimate Weigh-In show a little bit later. I just want to pound out this Contender Series breakdown for you guys and get it out of the way. All right, first fight on this 5-fight Contender Series card, we got Sandra Lavado going up against Carolina Wojcik. In terms of odds, we're looking at minus 250 on Wojcik and plus 210 the return on Sandra Lavado. Now, Sandra Lavado was the first one I started taping out of both of these women, and I started off pretty early in her career, and you can see the weirdness in her game, like the lack of experience at that point in time, right? We're talking about April of 2017 where she went up against Andrea Sorolus. And I honestly thought that Sorolus was Sandra Lovato to begin with, because I don't look at anything before I run the tape. Like I run the tape first, make up my narratives first, then I'll look at their topology record, then I'll look at the betting odds, and then make my decision based off of that. But mainly due to the film study, and I legitimately thought that Andrea was the Sandra here because of her fighting style, right? She was feisty, she was moving forward, she was throwing a lot of volume. Unfortunately, she got caught in a knee bar by Sandra later in that fight, and then I start to realize, oh, that's actually Sandra. Sandra, long, lanky. She uses her range decently, but there's not a lot of power behind her shots. She throws kind of winging-ish hooks. She can be quite effective from the outside, but it seems like her troubles come when people actually initiate the grappling exchanges with her. She does have a couple of submission victories on her record, which would lead you to believe that she's pretty solid on the ground. But when she's getting armbar victory over an 0-0 opponent, or an armbar, another one over an 0-0 opponent, 1-0 knee bar, 0-0 armbar as well. Like she's not fighting women of that high level or at that high caliber. The best woman she faced has beaten her twice. in terms of record wise, I'm saying so. Not a good look there. She's a rangy striker. That's pretty much all you're going to get from her. She doesn't look to engage in the grappling too much unless her opponent initiates it, and that's exactly what I'm thinking that Wojcik is going to be doing here. After I saw the first fight from Wojcik, I'm like, oh, she's going to be a hefty favorite in this spot. I was thinking at least minus 300. I was close to it in terms of the opener. The opener actually, the opener was minus 200, but we saw immediate action that brought her down to minus 250. Now she's hanging around minus 250. And I think she's a damn good spot to go out there and to look that price tag. Carolina is feisty. She comes forward. She has great shots down the middle in terms of her striking, and even her wrestling shots, I think, are very for that women's division, I think it's above average. And I think that Sandra Lavado is going to struggle in terms of keeping this fight upright, which will allow Wojcik to continuously get this to the ground, work her through the mat. And it's not like she's a lay in prayer either. She goes out there and she looks to finish her opponents. She has a ton of experience against legit opponents compared to what Sandra has been going up against over there in the South American scene. But she does have a loss to Cheyenne Vlismus earlier in her pro MMA career, a fight that could have gone either way. Very close fight. She had grappling success. Cheyenne had grappling success, but it was ultimately Cheyenne who gets her hand raised that night. But like all of the opponents, would give Sandra Lavado some issues, in my opinion. All of Carolina's opponents would give Sandra some issues, is what I believe. So I like Wojcik here. I would parlay her. I'm gonna actually look to parlay her with something for next weekend's card, just to, um, just to take advantage of it. I really think that this is one of those spots that can be taken advantage of. There's another one I'm considering later on the card, but I feel like Carolina is probably, if there was a lock of the night per se at decent enough odds, not Bo Nickal at minus 1400, but at minus 250, I think Carolina is a very solid spot. She should be able to go out there and do absolute work here against Sandra Lavado. So give me Wojcik, and I think she wins this fight by decision, although she could find some finishing opportunities for herself should Sandra really start to, break under that grapple heavy style of Carolina. All right, let's move on to the next one here. We're going to be talking about a flyweight fight between Clayton Carpenter and Edgar Chairez. In terms of odds, we're looking at minus 280 on Carpenter and plus 240 the return on Edgar Chairez. Now, watching the Alberto Trujillo fight for Chairez, you kind of see why Clayton Carpenter will more than likely go out there and win this fight. If he just follows Trujillo's blueprint, he will be more successful and will likely be able to get a finish, whereas Trujillo had to grind out Chairez over 15 minutes. Clayton Carpenter is probably one of the most complete fighters I saw at 2-0, right? He's 5-0 at this point in time, but the first fight I saw of his was when he was 2-0. And I'm like, God damn, this kid is good. He has great striking. He has phenomenal wrestling. He has a great coaching staff behind him over at the MMA Lab. But he kind of reminded me of the kid from last week, Marshall, the kid that got it done. I should have gone with Marshall. That seemed like an obvious play, and I kind of went against my whole narrative of being questionable about guys that have been able to go out there and just get quick finishes. Whereas with Marshall, we saw him deal with a little bit of adversity and still go out there and win a 15-minute fight. Carpenter is the guy that can go out there and win the 15-minute fight. And he can absolutely go out there and win this fight in 13 seconds like he did in his last fight. I love this kid's style. I think he can beat some flyweights currently on the UFC roster with his style. And as long as his durability continues to hold up, again, not saying that he's super hittable or anything like that, but that is usually the way that guys are going to be able to beat him, is by just Hail Mary shot. And that's what Edgar Chairez is going to need here. Edgar, long, lanky 125er. He's standing at 5'7". Clayton Carpenter coming in at 5'5". I would be interested to see what the reach is going to be on Edgar here. But Edgar, long, lanky ranger, similar to Sandra Lavado, but throws with way more heat, throws with way more conviction, and he's very adamant in terms of getting finishes. I believe all of his wins, yes, all of his wins have come via finish, which is very impressive. But again, level of competition is a little bit sketchy compared to what Clayton Carpenter. Actually, Clayton Carpenter's level of competition has been a little sketchy itself. 1-2, 1-3, 0-0, 3-1, 5-2. Whereas Edgar Chairez has been fighting these regional guys down there in Mexico who are like 10-3, 5-2, 4-1, 4-1, 3-1, 0-2. So he fought a guy that was 7-4 in his fourth ever fight, and he beat him via spinning elbow and punches. He's a very fun striker for sure. He could give some guys issues, but I see that hole in his game, which just like Sandra, is the grappling. It's the takedowns. I think that Clayton Carpenter will stay safe enough on the feet to eventually open up that takedown opportunity. And I think from there, he should be able to take this fight home without too much concern. So give me Clayton Carpenter. I actually want to parlay him with Carolina Wojcik, honestly. I might look to do that for one unit as an official bet. But if you guys want like multi-event parlay pieces, I think Carpenter and Wojcik are probably the best way to go for this card specifically. Again, I am not going to say, minus 1400 on Bo Nickal. You should be going out there and parlaying that with everything. Because, like, just for an example here, on Bet Online, you parlay Carolina Wojcik and Clayton Carpenter, you're getting minus 111. You add Bo Nickal at minus 1400, it only goes up to plus 104. So very small increase if you add Bo Nickal to anything. Again, we'll get to the Bo Nickal breakdown, and he should absolutely win that fight. But at a certain point, you got to think that number is just a little bit too high, because we have to remember at the end of the day, this is MMA. We've been seeing some injuries over the last couple of events. We've been seeing some banana peel moments for a lot of guys, and that could absolutely happen with Bo Nickal as well. So you don't want to get caught with your hand in the cookie jar here with that minus 1400 on Bo Nickal. In a parlay that where everything else ends up hitting, but Bo Nickal ends up fucking it up. But again, Bo Nickal should run through this guy. I'll get to that very shortly. So pick for the last fight, like I said, is going to be Clayton Carpenter. I think he could get Chairez out of there eventually, maybe with a submission or a late TKO. But I think his style is going to be too much for Clayton. Or sorry, the style is going to be too much for Edgar Chairez. Hype MMA saying Clayton is lock. I absolutely agree. Alan Chancing was the lock for tonight. I haven't looked at PFL, my friend, so I apologize. I cannot give you an educated answer to that question. All right, let's move on to the next fight here as I take a sip of my water. This has got to be the fight that I'm looking forward to most. Anvar Boynazarov going up against Eric Silva. In terms of odds, we have Eric Silva as a slight favorite here, as he's coming in around minus 155, plus 135 the return on Anvar Boynazarov. This is the fight, like I said, that I'm looking most forward to this on this card. It's going to be fun. We got 3-0 Anvar Boynazarov, who has a storied glory kickboxing career, but in MMA, still relatively new. Made his MMA debut back in December of 2020. He's had 3 fights. He's finished all opponents under 1 minute and 40 seconds, which is very impressive. But you got to wonder what it looks like when he starts taking steps up in competition. We know what his game is, right? Let's go out there and strike. He has nasty leg kicks. He was able to finish his first opponent off just with leg kicks alone. And his striking very fast, very disciplined, very crisp. He keeps everything tight. He keeps everything disciplined, which is why you see him strike with so much success. In regards to Eric Silva, I get why Eric Silva is the favorite here, right? He has solid striking, but he gets his best work done when he gets the fights to the mat, and he's able to use his jiu-jitsu. So if you have a guy who's not a complete fish out of water in the striking realm, and obviously has a clear advantage in the grappling realm, you got to make that guy the favorite. I completely understand. My qualm with the Eric Silva side here is like the takedowns and the way that we're seeing him get fights to the ground, I think are a little bit flimsy. Like I think that Anvar, from what little he's shown from us, stays very disciplined with his striking. Like he does not overthrow, he doesn't overextend, he stays ready for shots that are inevitably coming his way, right? As a high level kickboxer, the way Anvar is, that once you step into the MMA cage, guys are going to be looking to take it to the ground over and over again. So he stays disciplined. He's waiting for the shots from his opponents, and then he'll eventually start letting his own strikes go. Eric Silva, like I said, the majority of the ways that I've seen the fights get to the ground and him get to his jiu-jitsu are one with him rocking his opponent, two with his opponents looking to get the fight to the ground, and three, I saw a single leg that he was able to land on one of his opponents, but I feel as though Anvar will be very, very privy to those types of takedown entries, and he'll either make them pay with a knee, he'll make them pay with a sprawl, or he'll just be able to get out of the way and not get taken down. It is absolutely possible that he can be exposed here by the more complete mixed martial artist in Eric Silva. However, I just have something in the back of my head that's just like, Anvar could pull this off, man. Anvar could go out there and get the knockout victory of his own. So what I'd actually be looking to tackle is the under 1.5. Whenever the 1.5 drops, which I absolutely believe it will, considering Anvar's run, especially considering Eric Silva's run, he's currently on a 4-fight first round finish streak. It makes sense as to why this will be set at 1.5, and I'd absolutely take the shot there, as either we get Silva get this fight to the ground and dominate Anvar, eventually opening up a submission opportunity where he can get his hand raised, or Anvar just blasts him on the feet and just gets him out of there. So the pick is going to be Anvar Boynazarov. But the bet that I would recommend here would be the violence bet, under 1.5. Totally on board with it. And again, the fight that I'm looking forward to most here, easily. Hype MMA is saying Anvar is Giga's daddy. Josh Ruffrick saying, does this feel like the weakest card of the year, Lock? For UFC Vegas 59, probably. Alan Chan saying, if I had to make a pick, would I go with Pettis or Stevie Ray? I would go with Pettis. I get it, Stevie Ray just beat him, but if you guys watch that fight back, Pettis was pretty much winning that entire fight. All right. Let's move on to the next fight here. I love these Contender Series cards because we can just bang through these matchups relatively quickly. We're only 16 minutes into the stream, and we are 3 fights down. I love it. 2 more fights to go. Next up is in the heavyweight division. We got Paulo Renato Jr. going up against Jamal Pogues. I hope that's how we pronounce it. Minus 310 on Pogues and plus 260 on Paulo Renato Jr. Very intriguing fight here as well, because the Paulo Renato side, not much data available on him in terms of actual fight footage. If anybody does have footage on Renato that I may not have seen as of yet, I've only seen the Hobinson Silveira fight and the Rafael Hernandez fight. And those fights were pre-2017. And why I say 2017 is because that's the last time he fought at 170 pounds. He took 4 years off, nearly 4 years off, came back in 2021, and he came back as a heavyweight. But no, this is not a Jake Collier type of situation in terms of coming back and looking completely out of shape. This guy looks ripped and buff at heavyweight, at least from the last pictures that I've seen. So I think that we'll see him go out there and look pretty good at this weight class. He's been able to go 3-0. He's forced 2 guys to lose via retirement in the second rounds of his first 2 fights, although level of competition needs to be questioned there. And then he knocked out his last opponent in 1 minute and 44 seconds. He seems to be a solid, fluid striker, seems to have some jiu-jitsu up his alley as well. Jamal Pogues, on the other hand, looks like a very complete fighter in his own right. He did get a shot on the Contender Series where he was able to beat Marcos Bragagao, but he did not put on a good enough performance to get signed to the UFC. He ended up going to LFA, losing his first fight there against Alex Polizzi, who's obviously now in the Bellator cage, but then follows that up with a win over Tim Hilly. Now, that fight was 2 years ago. He's been out of the cage for a while now. He's also 26 years old, so he doesn't have too much time. He doesn't have to worry in regards to being too quick with his time. But my main concern with Jamal Pogues comes here is the cardio. Him falling off, him looking to life or death grapple in round 3 so he doesn't get knocked out or finished by his opponents. Unfortunately, that's happened to him twice, though. He got submitted by Jordan Young in a fight that he was absolutely winning in the first 2.5 rounds, but then gets armbarred with just less than 2 minutes left in the fight. Then the Alex Polizzi fight, that was a 5-round fight where he gets heel hooked 41 seconds into the 4th round. Like, he does have a steep decline over that 2-round, 2.5 round mark where guys can absolutely take advantage of him. Paulo Renato, again, data is just not out there enough for me to go out there and be like, stick my flag in the ground and be like, bet Paulo Renato he's going to pull off the upset. But he could absolutely make things very tough here for Jamal Pogues, especially if this fight gets into that third round. Pogues, solid striker, uses his range very well. He's very tall and lanky for this heavyweight division, 6'3", 77-inch reach. But it's just that cardio that gives me some issues. He has solid grappling. That's where he gets his best work done, is when he's able to get these guys to the ground and out muscle them. But cardio is no bueno for me, and I can't pay heavy chalk on a guy that has bad cardio. So like I said at the beginning of this stream, if I feel very flimsy about a big favorite here, I'm going to end up going with the underdog here, which I'll do with Paulo Renato. I just wish we had more footage on the Renato side to see what he looks like at 265, or at this heavyweight weight class, I should say. And, can he deal with that Pogue style of wrestling, and how good is his jiu-jitsu really off of his back? Those things remain to be seen. We'll probably find out this weekend, or on Tuesday. Start getting used to dropping these Contender Series breakdowns for you guys. But that is an absolute concern. So I'll go at Paulo Renato. I don't think it's going to be a popular pick amongst the masses, as again, Jamal Pogues does a lot of things well. It's just his cardio that gives me some issues here. And if he can't get Renato out there early, it's going to look rough for him. I will say this. I might revisit this after what the weigh-ins look like. But from all accounts, it looks like Paulo Renato's in very good shape for a guy that used to fight at 170 pounds, but now finds himself at heavyweight. So, like I said, I'll go with Paulo Renato with the late finish. Please avoid Pogues, in my opinion. That guy will gas the fuck out and probably fumble the bag later in this fight. Hype MMA saying Pogues via WrestleFuck. That's absolutely live, but if he doesn't get him out of there, I just do not like how much he slows down later in fights. Maybe Renato can take advantage of that. This is a bad matchup for Paulo, in my opinion. Again, I've only seen 2 fights of Paulo, right? He looked great in those spots. He was able to get the finishes, but this will be his toughest test to date. We'll see how it goes. All right, main event time. We're going to be talking about the highly touted, highly anticipated appearance of Bo Nickal. He's going to be going up against Zachary Borrego. In terms of odds, like I said earlier today, or earlier in the podcast, minus 1,400 on Bo Nickal, plus 700 on Zachary Borrego. Let's not beat around the bush. That's, we know what this is. We know this is a setup spot for Bo Nickal. We know he should go out there and smash this guy. There's a reason as soon as he opened up at minus 300 that he got, pushed all the way to minus 1,400. Standout wrestler, amazing grappler, has been working over there at ATT for a couple years now, if I'm not mistaken. He's looking to make that transition to MMA and be very successful in it. And he has all the talent to do so. Striking looks like it's catching up to his wrestling, but it's still, we got to see what it looks like against legitimate competition. My qualm is the fact that he only has 1 pro MMA fight. He has 2 amateur fights. All these fights he's finishing relatively quickly. We know once you get to the UFC, the level of competition goes up so much more. So what I would hate to happen for Bo Nickal is to smash this guy and get put into the UFC right away. I absolutely feel like Dana White's going to even say the same thing. This guy's only 1-0. What I hope the UFC would look to do is give this guy a development deal. Give this guy a deal similar to what they did with Chase Hooper. Put him on the regional shows on Fight Pass, right? Put him on CFFC. Put him on Island Fights. Put him on Titan FC, whatever the fuck it is. Get him more experience against legit regional guys. And if he passes those with flying colors, bring him over to the UFC. We need to see him face adversity. And, usually guys don't face adversity in their first several fights, but still, like, taking a big step up to the UFC is not an easy thing to do. He has the wrestling to do it, but does he have the cardio? That's going to be a big question mark, right? He hasn't been pushed. He hasn't faced adversity. If he faces adversity, how is he going to react to that? Will his striking be enough to hang with the guys in the UFC? Again, he could probably beat up on the lower level guys in that weight class, but still some question marks. But if he's able to put it together very well. Like if he can really mix in his striking well with his grappling and utilize his wrestling even more, he has a high ceiling in the middleweight division because there's just not a lot of guys with the grappling upside in the heavyweight division or the middleweight division. Sorry, I should say. He should have tremendous success there, right? Like that's why Izzy, his toughest grappling test he's faced to date, is at least in the middleweight division, is Marvin Vettori. But Marvin Vettori is not this college level wrestler, right? Like he can't hold a candle to what Bo Nickal is able to do on the wrestling mats. So he could absolutely thrive in this division. It just all depends on how he's able to put everything together. I just don't know. I really don't know if he can make a quick stamp in the UFC if he gets his contract this weekend or on Tuesday. But I think he wins this fight relatively easy. Borrego, he's a brawler. He gets taken down easily. Like the first fight I saw of him, the guy got taken down and submitted, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it was one of his amateur fights. Which one was it? Yeah, the Felipe Hocha fight. That was November of 2021. We're talking about less than a year ago, guys. He got taken down with relative ease and choked out. Since then, he's put together 3 wins. You know, again, a lot of it based around his power and his striking style. But we know Bo Nickal will likely, you know, he'll probably play around on the feet a little bit, and he could potentially get caught in those situations. But maybe if he feels a little bit of resistance, he'll look to get this fight to the ground, which I don't think will be all that hard. And then from there, he should be able to get the work done. I think the UFC's got to give Zachary Borrego another shot, or at least in the Contender Series later on in this season, because we know what they're doing here. They're setting him up. So pay the favor back, put him up against somebody else on a later episode of the Contender Series, and maybe he can give us a better, you know, a better idea of what he actually brings to the table. But this is a squash spot. Let's be honest. This is a squash spot. Joshua Frick asking, can you talk about why fast twitch muscle fiber guys gas so fast? I'd say, well, it depends on the guy's style, right? Like, will he play it safe? Like, will he do the Jack Hermanson thing where they can just stick on the outside and just stay safe enough by throwing minimal output or half-assed output? Or do these guys just go out there and Terrence McKinney it? Do they just go out there and just throw big strikes and big shots? It's how they manage their gas tank. But those fast twitch muscle guys, they know they can use that to their advantage to get early finishes. But if they can't get that finish, then all that energy they use try to get these guys out of there eventually bites them in the ass. We got some guys answering the question as well. But first, HSP saying, Sakat, that's my team. Love this logo. Love this logo. Scott Tix is saying, Lock is too early, man. Just woke up. Well, I got another stream coming up at 6 p.m. Eastern time, which is 3.5 hours from now. So make sure you come back for that. HSP saying, because fast twitch muscle is based on short explosive moves leaning on their ATP stores. Somebody please let me know what ATP stands for. Let's see. Adenosine triphosphate. Energy carrying molecule found on the cells of all living things. There you guys go. Some science for your ass on this Contender Series. All right. Happy to keep this nice, short, and sweet, just under 30 minutes. Appreciate everybody checking out the show. Hope you guys are enjoying the Contender Series breakdowns. I know a lot of people were very appreciative of it for the last episode that I dropped. Hopefully, we can continue to see these numbers rake in at the same clip as the last one. And hopefully, we can go 3-2 or 4-1 compared to the 2-3 that I went last week. Always remember, be safe with the Contender Series. Shit is volatile as hell, especially with the stipulations that Dana has set out there in regards to being, being entertaining, putting on a highlight reel, and that might put guys into some risky positions that they might not end up fighting the same style that they normally fight in. So be very careful. But I feel pretty decent about the picks and predictions that I just gave out to you guys. All right. Love you guys. I'll be back at 6 p.m. Eastern. Anybody watching on the live stream, I'll be back at 6 p.m. Eastern to break down UFC Vegas 59 one last time with my guy, Gordo Gambles. First time on the show. Should be a fun time. Always great having a fellow Canuck on the show as well. So make sure you guys check that out. Join me at 6 p.m. Eastern right here on this channel. All right, good luck on the Contender Series, and I'll see you guys again next week for week 4, which I'll get started on in the next couple of days here and drop once again on Friday afternoon. Peace.